Hi BookTube, it's Amy. So I guess I'm going to call this more ways to talk about your book. And I'm going to start with book labels and book plates. So my trusty little guide here that I rely on quite a bit, ABC for Book Collectors by John Carter, makes a distinction between a book label and a book plate. A book label, John Carter says, is something smaller. So think along the lines of those address stickers that you sometimes get from charities in the mail, and you find them stuck all over the place. And I often see those in romance or mystery novels, just sort of stuck on the title or the half title page or one of the leaves of the book, just to indicate the owner. It's usually just the owner's name, mostly all text. But when we talk about book plates, we're talking about something that is created as a work of art in and of itself. And I have loved book plates for years. I was always drawn to the books in the bookstores that had book plates. And I'm going to show you some of the examples of book plates that I have on my shelf. So as I said, book plates are larger and they tend to have not only the owner's name, but also an image of some sort, and they're very intricately designed. They're sometimes called ex libris stickers. This one here does say ex libris. So this is a book plate from someone by the name of George W. Wilde. We've got this fantastic ship up here. And this is in a book called The Tower of London by Harrison Ainsworth that has been sitting on my shelf for quite a while. Haven't read it yet, but it was really the book plate that drew me to it in the bookstore. Another example here is actually one with a personal connection to me. So this is one of the volumes of my grandfather's set of Shakespeare. And there is a small book plate, a small ex libris sticker in the front. But if you notice, it was originally pasted in the volume, and it is throughout all the volumes of the set. It was originally pasted in the volume by someone named Etta O. Miriam. And my grandfather, C. Zingerlein, has added his own name with a stamp down below. And you'll find that every now and then when you find a book with a book plate that somebody has crossed out the name of a previous owner and put their own to assert the fact that they are now the owner of that book. And book plates are interesting too because they indicate what the book world calls provenance. So provenance is more or less the chain of ownership of your book. It is the pedigree or the history of who owned your book from the time it was published to the time it came into your hands. And of course, if you can figure out the provenance of a book, sometimes that can actually raise the value of a book. So for instance, if you can determine that the book in your hands was owned by Samuel Coleridge or Abraham Lincoln, suddenly that book is a lot more valuable. And you can determine provenance from things like sales records or book plates or even handwriting or marginalia within a book. So if somebody has taken notes throughout and you can determine that that handwriting is indeed theirs, then suddenly your book is worth a lot more. On the other hand, if you are not famous, you could actually decrease the overall value of a book. Now, for people like me, book plates don't decrease the value at all. In fact, I am more interested in a book if it has a book plate or signs of previous ownership. There's another one here in my copy of The Greenwood Hat by J.M. Barrie. This one, not quite as fancy, a little bit rougher, a little bit newer. It looks as though somebody has cut and pasted it themselves fairly recently. It's on glossy paper as though it's come from a magazine of some sort, and it's very generic. This is not something that someone had specially designed or specially printed to put in all their books. This is one that was mass produced and someone decided to paste in here, and we don't even have a name on this book plate. And then we have the Introduction of Printing into Canada, which is an older book here, and it's got this very interesting book plate in here. This is one that was obviously specially printed for the owner, because as you can see, the owner's name itself is printed into the book plate rather than written on top, as happens with many book plates. And so we've got these, it looks like comic and the tragic masks here, Ex Libris, Ronald, can't read that backwards, Ronald Atkins and his book. And so that's quite an interesting example as well. And although book plates have fallen out of favor largely, they still do exist, and there are actually artists in online marketplaces who will, for a couple of $100s, create a book plate for you, create the design, send it to you, and then you, of course, print it off on your home printer or have it professionally printed somewhere. But there are still people who have book plates designed to put in their books. So then back to the books here. Let's select a random book. Let's look at The Greenwood Hat by J.M. Barrie. So we have our book plate in the front here, and we have our half title page here. So the half title page often just has the title, sometimes the author, but really no more information than that. And I chuckle a bit because sometimes it's called the bastard title page. And it usually comes, well, it always comes in the book before the title page. So this is the title page we're all familiar with. It has the title, the author, the publisher, and the preface or the translator if applicable. And then over here, directly next to the title page on the left is the frontispiece. And the frontispiece is most often an image. And so here we have a drawing of the author, of James Anon. He refers to himself, and here is James Anonymous as the anonymous writer. And so that explains the caption here. If we open up this one, we have the half title page there, and we have this exquisite title page from 1930. But you'll notice here, no frontispiece really. We just have a blank frontispiece. And so that one is a little bit on the unusual side. But if we open up the Shakespeare, we have the title page here and the image on the frontispiece. And same thing if we open up the Tower of London. We have, actually in this one, we have no half title page at all. We have the title page and no frontispiece image. And so as you can see, sometimes it has the frontispiece and sometimes it doesn't. Another curiosity that we find in older books is the colophon. And the colophon is not commonly used in modern books at all. It's been replaced by the copyright page. And we're all familiar with the copyright page. I just have here a copy of Six Sigma by Richard Schroeder. And if we flip it open, we have, of course, the very recognizable copyright page. It's got the publisher, it's got the registration with the Library of Congress, it's got the ISBN number, and of course we have the copyright date, edition numbers, etc. But with older books, there was no copyright page at the beginning. Rather, at the end, you would have the colophon, which could contain everything from the title of the book to the author to the name of the publisher, to the year that it was published. And sometimes there are books from the 18th or 19th century that sort of contain both. And so you have the title and the author and the publisher at the front, but then you flip to the back of the book and that's where you find the publication date or the copyright date, as well as the name of the publisher and sometimes the publisher's device, which is an image printed by the publisher in their books to identify books made by that publisher or printer. So if you pick up an older book and you can't find that publication date in the front, you can try flipping to the back of the book and seeing if it does indeed appear there. So those were a few more pieces of vocabulary that you can use to talk about the books that you own and the books you are reading. And I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you have a lovely Monday.